Joining us from Jerusalem, a senior contributing editor at the Jewish News Syndicate and host of the Caroline Glick Show. He's also a columnist for Newsweek, by the way. Let's talk about the war as we're coming off a conversation about domestic politics in the U.S. In terms of how supportive President Biden has been. I mean, if you look at our polling numbers here, the president's actually lost support among his own supporters and his own party because he's been so supportive of Israel. However, you know, I know people, and you, I believe, are one of them, have been critical of the administration. You said something like this is one of the more anti-Israel administrations we've ever seen. So put that all together for us, if you can.
Okay, sure. So the thing is that, and thanks for having me on your program, by the way. The thing of it is that, you know, we talk about a lot about the splits in the Republican Party and who's for whom, but really the biggest split is in the Democratic Party. And one of the areas that you see the split most clearly today is over Israel. So you have a minority of Democrats, about 25% of them, but they're overrepresented in the grassroots of the Democrats are extremely hostile to Israel. They also have a very large representation in the Biden administration itself. And then you have the majority of Democrats, smaller perhaps than the Republicans, but support Israel. And so he's been trying to please everyone, and it hasn't gone very well. And today, or actually over the weekend, Vice President Kamala Harris parroting a lot of the statements that Tony Blinken has made and that President Biden himself has made in recent days, essentially laid down the law for Israel and said, we support your right to self-defense, but you can't take any measures in Gaza that are actually going to let you win. So it's sort of a turning away from Israel that we're seeing very clearly on the part of the Americans. Israel is acutely aware of this and trying to thread a needle.
Can I ask
but
you
the
about
eye
that?
of that needle keeps getting smaller.
For a moment specifically, you say that they can't take any measures that would allow Israel to win. I'm sure, as you know, the administration would put it a different way, saying that, you know, tens of thousands of civilians dying within Gaza, that they, again, support Israel's right to retaliate post-October 7th, but that there should be more care taken for those civilians, that Israel's not doing enough. A lot of people here in the United States have said to protect innocent civilian lives. What do you say to that argument?
Nobody in Israel wants innocent civilians to die in Gaza. That's not who we are. That's who Hamas is. And the way to protect innocent civilians who live in Gaza is the same way that you protect innocent civilians who live in Syria or live in Ukraine or any other war zone, which is to let them leave and seek refuge in third countries. And what we're seeing here is that the Egyptians, who share a border with Gaza through which they would leave to third countries, is blocking them from escaping. And the American government, the Biden administration, is standing with Egypt, and so preventing a humanitarian solution to this problem that would actually save the lives of the people of Gaza. And so Israel is being pressured to do something which nobody can do, because Hamas's doctrine in fighting is to fight behind civilians. And the only way, again, to protect them is to let them run away from Hamas. And then it would be much easier, by the way, for Israel to secure its war goal of defeating Hamas. But you have this untenable situation, and there's an obvious answer. And yet Kamala Harris said on Saturday, she said, under no circumstances will the United States permit the forced relocation of Palestinians from Gaza. And, you know, I mean, nobody's talking about forcing them, but
Meaning into
you could
Egypt.
argue, and I'm sure Israel haters will, that they're forced to leave
Right.
because they're in a war zone, just like the Ukrainians are forced to leave, just like the Syrians are forced to leave, and everybody else, Iraqis.
Couldn't you execute the war or prosecute the war in a different way? You know, we're going to talk about this a little bit later on in the show. More special operations forces as opposed to airstrikes, things like that, that might be that might lead to fewer civilian deaths.
Well, obviously, Israel is looking into that as well, but you have to understand Hamas has tens of thousands of terrorists that are burrowed within the civilian population centers. And by the way, they're welcomed there by the civilians. You know, we've had thousands of Gazans actually participated in the invasion of Israel and of the rape and the murder, mutilation, and theft from Israeli communities. That was carried out by normal Gazans who also welcomed Hamas back with the hostages, beat them, spat on them,
Right.
on naked women. So we're not talking about a civilian population that is alienated from Hamas. Hamas is an organic consequence of a society that's organized around the principle of genocide of Israelis. All that said, Israel still is going to great lengths to try to protect civilians.
Thanks so much for watching. Just go to joinnn.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.